Hey, what's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Will $63 million is too much to fire Kalen DeBoer?
Too much. It's not my money. I could never speak on such a thing. That's up to the Board of Trustees to figure out.
And if you saw the tweet from my good pal Matt Hayes, our good pal Matt Hayes, of $70 million. $70 million was the buyout coming into this year. So at 63, I believe, is the number for at the end of the season. It's a little bit north of 60. Oh my God. Oh my God. We have a million things to talk about to wrap up week one in the SEC. But yeah, I did a little Google search just to see how many different outlets were reporting on Kalen DeBoer's buyout. And I realized I have him as a 2 on the SEC hot seat index. And the fact that we're already here week one just lets you know how bad that Bama performance was.
No, wait, this is like a unicorns and leprechauns thing with Stanley Nichols. 2 on the hot seat index. What are we out of?
We were 2 out of 10. So we were 2 out of 10. Remember, going back to February when we did that pod. And I still think he's fine. But we are going to get to just a disastrous Bama performance. That was the type of things that occurred in Tallahassee on Saturday are things that I think even went beyond Vandy, and we will get to all of that. It was a very noteworthy week one in the SEC. We only have 5 games to talk about because we are recording this at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Central. Will, for those who are watching on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Will is back in Chicago. I shouldn't say back in Chicago. You're not from there. I'm from there.
Back in your home of Chicago. A great note there, because you never know. A minute Airbnb, people could be bumping around. We could hear Go Cubs go outside. They'd be like, did they abduct Will? But yes, I'm having a fantastic morning. I'm feeling more moisturized. I'm feeling ready for the day. I'm going to see Avenged Sevenfold and System of a Down later today. So this is just one of the best opening weeks of my life. I got a lot of sleep last night. I'm not hungover. I'm happy to see you today, Connor.
Yeah. Why is that, Will? Is that related to LSU, like winning a season opener for the first time in the 2020s?
I didn't have biting questions keeping me up at night. I didn't have worry about facing the audience today. I got to have a nice. So I got to watch the F1 race. So yeah, I mean, a couple of results really excited me over the weekend. And to your point, I think we'll tear into that here.
Yes, we will. But yes, like I said, 5 games to talk about today because as of this recording, South Carolina and Virginia Tech, the Beamer Bowl has not happened yet. That will be on 3 o'clock. Probably by the time people are listening to this, that game will have already happened. So we will have some big picture SEC things that we will get to, and we'll talk about those 5 power conference games. But first, word from our friends at Dabble. Guys, I've been talking about Dabble for a very, very long time. It is the newest and best app in the daily fantasy space. Maybe on Saturday, you're like, week one, I need some action. I need a place to be able to be able to have some sort of an outlet because I know that my team is going to lose, or I think my team is playing in a total laugher game and I have no real reason to be emotionally invested beyond the first quarter. And you're like, I need to get some daily fantasy action. Dabble, hopefully, was the place that you did it. And if it wasn't, Dabble should be the place that you do it moving forward. They're going to hook you up with all things daily fantasy for college football, NFL. Use the promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $10 in bonus cash, no deposit required. Again, that is promo code SDS2 for $10 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Well, we could start in a million different places, honestly. Just flip a coin. We could start with the biggest opener, maybe in college football history, with Arch's debut at Ohio State and what a dud that was. Obviously, we already talked about Bama, but I want to start with LSU and Clemson.
Please.
No objection from you.
No objections here, brother. What you got for me?
Well, it finally happened. It finally happened. They said LSU could never win a season opener in the 2020s. They said Brian Kelly couldn't win big games. They said Brian Kelly couldn't start 1-0.
They said Brian Kelly had to be the least likable coach in a matchup. And then since we recorded our pod, that was an all-time cold take. Dabo ratted out LSU's starting safety, A.J. Halsey, for fighting. So that he got a guy suspended. That was just a beautiful game. What a narc, dude. That's, I gave you that Lou Holtz quote about like when teams run trick plays and they feel like they can't beat you straight up. I feel like from wire to wire, we kind of saw that out of Clemson. From the first whistle, it was like, we don't want to see these boys from Baton Rouge.
If Dabo had not done that and just let the Brian Kelly Death Valley Jr. comment stand, the college football gods would have looked kindly on Clemson. And
Mm-hmm.
instead they said, no, you don't get to do that. How dare you? You're getting shut out in the second half of this football game, this monumental football
To
game.
Dabo's credit, that guy mattered. He stepped on the field and the scoring was done for.
He did. He absolutely did. LSU's transfers as a whole mattered. Will, there was no podium pounding this time. Brian Kelly's first career win against an AP top 5 team in a true road game. How about that? Big time. LSU was the better football team, period. I texted you, I think it was late in the third quarter, and I said, Will, I don't know how this game's going to end up. It was, you know what? It was right after the Barryon Brown overturned touchdown, which we will get to in a minute here. But it was right after that played out. And I said to you, man, like, I don't know how this is going to play out, but everything that I've watched so far has told me that LSU is the better football team. And maybe some weird college football thing is going to happen and LSU is going to find a way to puke on its shoes in the fourth quarter. But like, I'm not backing off how I feel about LSU. And by game's end, Death Valley, it resides in Baton Rouge. I'm convinced.
Yeah. They always used to say, that's where dreams go to die. And I think one thing that was so interesting about this game was, hey, we had a pretty smart writer on this podcast, talk about the rushing attack here. And that really did end up being the deciding story of the game. LSU and Caden Durham were able to push the pile, I think, on both sides of the ball, but they were able to quiet the crowd, hand the ball off, and that fun house mirrors of an offense, buddy. Every play looks radically different. You're not sure where the ball is going to go. Caden Durham is having to do the Macarena and spin around 3 times before every carry, but yet it didn't matter. The holes were so big for him to run through. On the other side of the ball, 2 weeks notice, the 2 Weeks brothers felt like they were getting free on every play. All those transfers, to your point, made a difference on the edges. So, yeah, I think that it came down to line play, and one team definitely showed up there.
Well, LSU's got a defense.
Yep.
It's there. It's such a statement performance from Blake Baker's unit to start year 2, to have a shutout in the second half. Think about this. It took, I would call, a very Herculean effort from Adam Randall to get into the end zone, the converted receiver who was playing running back, because when you don't recruit the transfer portal, that's the type of thing that you have to do if you're Dabo Swinney and you're dealing with depth issues in the backfield. But he got into the end zone for Clemson's only touchdown of the day, and it took that type of effort. That, to me, that's telling. Whit Weeks ended the game, I think, with 2 tackles. That guy last year had to make like every tackle for LSU once Harold Perkins was out, and he only had 2 tackles in a game where I felt like he was everywhere. We've already mentioned him. The Weeks brothers were all over the place, and even the almost tackles felt loud with him. And to me, that is such a great sign for this LSU defense moving forward, because Cade Klubnik was completely held in check. All the way down to the Harold Perkins Jr. spy pressure to close the game, and how fitting it was that the guy who's been there for every single one of those Brian Kelly season openers got to put the cap on that game.
And misused it each and every one in a different way. And yet this one, he found his home.
True. Good point. Because in the first one, I think he played like single-digit snaps.
Yep.
I want to say in that first Florida State game in 22. Yeah, that was the exact type of defensive performance that LSU has lacked in the 2020s. You'd have to go back to at least 2019 to find a defensive performance like that. And I don't even know if there's one individually from that season that stands out in that way. I think you can make the case 2018 actually had a few of those types of performances where LSU's defense knew it had to do a little bit more of the heavy lifting, but because LSU was so generationally good on offense in 2019, they didn't always need those performances, or at least they didn't stand out that way. But that game right there, that's why you pay $2.5 million to hire Blake Baker. That's it.
Yep.
All of it.
We saw Brian Kelly, we saw Joe Sloan towards the end of the game kind of doing a little bit of that turtling, right? Not getting aggressive, trying to, bleed the clock instead of scoring. And I just looked at Blake Baker and I just saw the quiet rage in his eyes. That was like, this buddy's sitting in the house. He knows what's going to happen. That's why we love to have Blake Baker in these big moments, because he trusts his guys. Could you be a transfer? Could you be a 3rd, 4th year player like we were just talking about with Harold Perkins? He trusts you. If you're on the field, you're there for a reason. You have a role. You're not just some dude running around like it was under Matt House. And so seeing kind of look in his eyes and kind of, he didn't have the hungover sunglasses this time. It was a night game. He was locked in. He was dialed in. And I think, number one, the ability to leave those DBs in single coverage. Enough cannot be said about
Huge.
Corey Raymond and the fact that they knew those linebackers were coming on almost every play. And the guys they got out of the transfer portal, Delane, Halsey, Jordan Gilbert, up and down the roster, they were able to hold those receivers from getting the one big play, that we saw in the Texas-Ohio State game.
Think about this too. And I know Antonio Williams going down for Clemson probably changed what they were going to do in the passing attack. And I don't want to just totally ignore that. But still, you had a very experienced offensive line. You had a third-year starter at quarterback, a preseason All-American in Cade Klubnik, familiar receivers still to throw to because you still had guys that were making big-time plays down the stretch for you last year as well. And LSU had free rushers in so many spots. That Patrick Payton pressure that forced the Mansour Delane pick, that was, to me, man, I'm glad I got that guy play the game for Brian Kelly. it just was.
Glad I called that guy.
Delane he's a stud. He is everything I thought he was going to be for this team. I think he's going to stabilize so much in that secondary. And I just thought so many of those transfers played their tails off on both sides of the ball for LSU. And it confirmed that LSU, the thing I've been saying for the last 8 months, they've shown that urgency. And it showed up there in just such a big time way. And that is why you go out and you get experienced players. They showed up in that atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'll say too, I remember after one of the season openers, Mason Smith was suspended for autographs or something had happened to him. And I remember looking at the depth chart and being like, oh my God, we have nobody. There's not, when you get into the 2 and 3 deep, the guys that are going to be rotating in, I don't trust any of these guys that are playing for LSU. This is so different from the teams that I grew up with. And this team feels like the exact opposite. It's okay, Halsey gets suspended. We bring in another guy. Okay, this guy's getting tired on the D-line. We have another guy rotating in. And so I think that's the thing that's so different about LSU after years of just having a bombed-out defense that was a victim of the transfer portal, having that old-school SEC kind of Georgia-esque depth on defense where every time you look up, there's a guy you should be scared of.
This was not a win me the Heisman Trophy performance by Garrett Nussmeier. This was an I'm an NFL quarterback performance by Garrett Nussmeier.
Yep.
He was in control. And the numbers aren't going to tell the full story, but I thought his recognition...
He had another touchdown in there. I think it helps a little bit. Anyway.
Probably. Probably true. Should have had another touchdown in there, definitely. His recognition on the defensive alignment where he just made the same consecutive throw 3 times and he's just playing with Tom Allen. That's maybe the best defensive coordinator in college football.
How about slamming that Y button on Xbox and going, they're not lined up right. They're not lined up right. Hit that no huddle. He just like me for real, Joe Sloan. I was like, they're caught. You got to call timeout there, dude.
That was such a video game play from Nussmeier. Yep. I truly wonder if that was years of playing video games that sparked that. Just oh wait, hey, I'm just gonna throw it out wide. They're still not gonna cover this. All right. Yeah, checking into the QB sneaks the way that he did, I thought was smart. I don't know what was originally called on those plays, but it looked like he was just getting up to the line, seeing, hey, I've got a yard to gain here. I'm just going to go get that first down. He just never really put the ball in harm's way, but he didn't feel like how we talk about game managers because he's still ripping the ball in the middle of the field. Aaron Anderson, that is my guy. That is my dude. I will go to bat.
Remember the Alabama fans were all down your throat saying, Aaron Anderson can't fix this offense. We couldn't use him. He couldn't help us. 99 receiving yards on the road. I know people are short phobic or whatever, but this is a baller. It doesn't matter. You putting in all those transfer receivers, it's not Nick Anderson that's shining under the lights. It's Big Tiny.
I love me some Aaron Anderson, man. And how about that catch? Yeah, I'm calling it a catch to Barryon Brown, the Kentucky transfer. That's not what he's known for. Dez caught it. Barryon caught it.
Dez tweeted about it.
I know. What's a catch, Will?
And again, I'm not going to sit here and talk about officiating. I'm so happy about this game because I truly feel like if we played this game 1,000 times, LSU wins about 900 of them. But I'll say this. If Bauer Sharp gets to make 0 steps, okay, and that's a fumble, I don't understand how Barryon Brown's 1.5 steps past the pylon is not a catch. I just think we should officiate things similarly within the same game. You can take away the fumble and take away the catch, or it can be a fumble and a touchdown. That's just fine. Pick one.
Herbstreit and Fowler didn't even entertain the idea of an incompletion. Herbstreit's on top of everything. I know I've said some critical things of Herbie in the past, and sometimes.
But when the game starts, that's the thing. It's like when he's doing his side job is when he has the problems.
Right. Herbie is able to pick up on things over the course of a game of like whether or not a guy's knee is down. And I'm wondering, how in the world are you watching that in real time to be able to see that? And he almost feels like an official, like he has a field view when he's broadcasting from the booth. And if that guy who has seen that much football is totally unaware of the possibility of an incompletion, it's probably a catch. I'm sorry. And I know, and we're going to get to the SEC crew, the SEC officiating crew, which
there was occasion on this crew. I hope his mom is happy with him, bro. I'm sure he called home, but they were like, "Don't come home. You're robbing the LSU Tigers, Mr. Godshaw, Mr. Boudreaux."
Don't tell Joel Clapp, but he thinks SEC officiating crews are basically terrorists. Remind us of that every single time there's a controversial call on the field. Thanks, Joel. But in this game, I was flabbergasted. Absolutely flabbergasted that call was made. And in the moment as this is happening, wherein Barryon Brown you can't have the ground cause a fumble. It looked like to me he completed the catch. He had already crossed the pylon and had possession of the football. And then LSU has a kick where the kicker cramps up like right before, or as he's kicking it or something like that. Credit Death Valley. I guess that is, you get to claim that one, I guess. The place where kicks go to die. I don't know.
You know what's so crazy about that too, though? I never felt, I'd been to 3 of these games and they're all horrible. I got John to rewatch the first one with the missed PAT because he wasn't at that one. He was actually at Dragon Con, little like cosplay convention or whatever that time. And so point being, like, we went back to those and it just felt tight the entire game. It felt like LSU was never in control against FSU. Twice, they're leading at halftime, and then all the win came out of their sails the second time. Against USC, it just felt tight. This game, it felt like they were in control, but the score didn't reflect it. And I feel like that was a huge kind of difference because you talked about Ramos getting hurt. That even goes into the depth point. I'm going, okay, Ramos is hurt. We got Aaron Burrell. We got a backup kicker.
Sure.
That's fine. Whatever we got to do to win this game, we're going to find a way to do it.
And I thought if there was ever a moment for LSU to revert back to its former self, this was the type of break that could have been it. And instead, defense stands on its head and LSU just rolls with it. Holly Rowe was reporting that Nussmeier is saying at the start of the fourth quarter, we're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. And they show the clip of Brian Kelly pounding the podium after the USC loss last year. And you could picture everything that could go wrong for LSU and how this could just be another one of those times. And it wasn't. And it wasn't. Like that to me just showed so much growth. Will, can I talk about Dabo?
I would love nothing more for you to transition to Dabo right now.
Dabo didn't like that I simply proposed the question about his team defending the run. And he told me to tune in on Saturday night. Credit Clemson.
How'd that go?
It did. I watched every second of it.
Appointment viewing thanks to Dabo. Set your calendar.
I wouldn't even do multi-view. I wouldn't even do multi-view during this game. I was flipping over to the A&M game with UTSA, especially as that was getting close. And you're like, why is Marcel Reed throwing for 30 times in the first half and they're just not willing to run the football? I understand you're trying to preserve Le'Veon Moss, but whatever. I gave this game my full undivided attention. And Clemson did not allow 243 rushing yards like it did on average in those 3 SEC losses last year. It did, however, lose the rushing advantage 108 to 31. Caden Durham was plenty effective. And when he breaks that tackle on the very first play from scrimmage, where Clemson looks like, you got him bottled up, and you're reminded, no, Caden Durham, that cat's pretty good. That cat's pretty darn good. He's slippery. You're not really going to be able to arm tackle that dude. And then he busts loose for 24 yards. I thought, I'm good. Clemson was okay against the run. Okay. Like it was fine. It is still not some elite trenches team in the way that it was made out to be. And that's really what this is all about. I kept hearing so much about how Clemson was the team who had the fewest questions of anyone in the sport. And Will, I'm sitting here questioning if Clemson's ever going to beat an SEC team again because they've lost to a quarter of the league since the start of last year. They're 4-4 in their last 8 football games. All right. Maybe they'll get South Carolina because that game is in Columbia and not at Clemson's Death Valley where fans show up and pretend it's the 2010s. It's not. Okay. I appreciate Dabo for telling me to tune into this one. I watched a great football game and I watched the better football team win. I watched one team with legitimate national title upside and another think that it had national championship upside, and it watched what that actually looked like. I don't think Clemson should be in the national championship conversation. I'll get to this with Bama. I don't think even in this expanded playoff era, you can win in week one and be. I don't think if you lose in week one, you're going to win a national championship. And maybe that's just too much of like a boomer BCS type thing. I'm 35, guys. I'm not a boomer, but
spiritually though,
I just think that with 8 months to prepare, I did pull weeds this morning before we hopped on the pod, but don't hate on me for that. We have this assumption that with the 12-team playoff era, you can just have games like this and have a record strength metric that's going to work in your favor at season's end. And maybe Clemson can still win the ACC, still get into the playoff and be fine. And people are like, hey, maybe Clemson's catching some mojo, just the same way that people were talking about them down the stretch last year. I don't think that with 8 months to prepare and depth issues not really hurting you yet in the way that they're going to down the stretch, I don't think you can legitimately win a national title if you lose week one. You'll still have a path. But I'm going to question how you're going to look with extra time to prepare when it comes to that playoff setting. I just will. And so for now, Clemson, Alabama, until they get to a semifinal, I'm not going to predict them to win a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I owe an apology to LSU and the people of Tiger Nation because I came on here and said that if Clemson played the same game against Texas, that they played against LSU the exact same way they played against Texas, they would win. And honestly, I was too high on Clemson. I was too high on Kate Klubnik, and I was too low on LSU. I think that I was scared that LSU was going to get scared and get away from the run game, which they never did. I think that LSU having 31 carries for 108 yards, and we can talk about sacks, but Garrett Nussmeier having positive yardage is honestly a big thing.
More rushing yards than Cade Klubnik in this game, 2-1.
Yep, exactly. But it's not having that minus number. It's the fact that they got here and there, but he ended up as a positive as a rusher. They could protect the passer. They could push downfield, when they're running the ball. So yeah, like I said, I owe everyone an apology because I thought, oh gosh, we're going to go into single coverage against Cade Klubnik, who's had these, multiple 300-yard passing days and everything. And he's this wizard who's, first could be an All-American, could be in the Heisman Trophy candidate. We have these transfer DBs are going to be on the road. They're just going to run slant routes. They didn't even have time for slant routes. That dude looked lost. And the thing is, when he did have a couple of seconds in the pocket, he was just running backward and had no idea where to go with the ball. So that's the thing. I think there are plays to be made there because ultimately in the college football game, you can't pressure as much as LSU did and not have some things break off. And I think that it came down to the fear that Cade was experiencing. And we expected there to be two equal quarterbacks, one playing at home, and that would give him the advantage on the day. And I think it couldn't have been more wrong. I think Nuss completely, to your point, didn't have some 500-yard day, but had the day that he needed to, took care of the football, didn't make the big mistake like he often does, didn't make it all about him. And Caden Durham, like we talked about, probably the second most important player from the fact that they finally leaned on him and it worked.
LSU's got national championship upside. And I came away from this feeling a little bit like I did 2021 Georgia against Clemson with seeing what the defense did. That just makes you go, whoa, that's different.
Yep.
And that is good enough to compete at that level. They have not had that. And I'm not saying that it's a given, even though I predicted LSU to win a national title and predicted them to win this game. But that is the exact type of performance that you could have hoped to see if you were an LSU fan. I think LSU is firmly in the driver's seat for SEC championship consideration, even though they haven't played an SEC game yet. I'm fine with that. I think LSU, when that poll comes out, I think AP poll comes out on Tuesday because the Monday night North Carolina TCU game, I would have LSU at number 2. I'd have LSU at number 2 right behind Ohio State at number 1.
Wow. It's crazy. Maybe you could talk about 2019, but I'm imagining the last time that LSU was underrated coming into the year and Bama was a little bit overrated. And I can't remember too many of those years. Usually it's LSU that comes in with the top 10 ranking, kind of pukes on their shoes or does something that makes you think maybe they're not that good, even if it's not in that big of a game. And then Bama comes out and everyone's in sleeping on them, forgets who the Kings are, and they blow the doors off some team. I'm looking at Brian Kelly and LSU going, was I underrating my own team? Did I think they had kind of that quit in them that they showed that they didn't? So this is already a really fascinating season.
Yeah, and I do think the schedule is still really difficult.
Oh, yeah.
LSU's going to get tripped up in the regular season. I'm not this 16-0, 17-0, and we're not going there. Okay.
But to your
We're
point, it sounds crazy, y'all, but winning the first game versus losing it is massive because previously, LSU would have done enough, I think, to make the 12-team playoff the first 2 years, right, with JD in 22 and 23, but there was no 12-team playoff. And then the year that there was a 12-team playoff, they lost an extra game. But feeling like we already have a loss in hand, we got to play perfect, under the 4-team model. Or like last year, oh, wow, like we got to really run through the SEC, make a big case. That's no longer here. So you can lose a game or two in the SEC and still be fine.
22, they wouldn't have been in.
Okay.
They wouldn't have been in because they had the A&M loss as well.
You're so right.
They had
Georgia.
Yeah, and then 23, I think they would have just missed it, wouldn't they have? Because they had 9 regular season wins, and then, weren't in the SEC championship. I don't think they would have been in the playoff, but they would have been in consideration.
Not in the playoff. Yeah. Like I always think it doesn't matter, so I don't go through the exact
New
science.
Year's 6,
but they would have been right there. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a team that started off in the top 10 that did not have a statement victory. It had a statement loss in every possible way.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, Will. I would say we don't
shared.
I don't like to judge year one coaches on this show. Maybe I don't want to say we all the time because I don't want to speak on your behalf. But I sure as heck judge year 2 coaches, and I'm judging the crap out of Kalen DeBoer. He was never going to be Nick Saban. But this is the number that is impossible to process right now as we sit here and talk about just an absolutely devastating loss for Alabama in Tallahassee. Alabama did not lose to an unranked team from 2008 to 2020. Okay. And Saban suffered 4 such losses in 17 years on the job. Kalen DeBoer got to loss number 4 against an unranked foe in his 14th game. Inexplicable. Just absolutely inexplicable. If you would have told me that Alabama played that game a week after the Michigan game, the bowl loss, I would have believed you. Same song, new verse. I'm going to give FSU credit in a minute here, so this isn't just going to be dog Bama and just ignore what FSU did, because that scene was great. I have FSU people in my life. I'm happy for them that they got to experience something after the crap fest that was 2024 and how much they have just been the college football punching bag. Like, I'm going to get to that. But for the life of me, I can't tell you what Alabama tried to do on either side of the ball after that opening series. I have no idea. They marched right down the field, scored that touchdown, and everything else after that opening script, looked like Alabama's only way to move the chains was going to be finding Jeremy Bernard, hoping he somehow gets open, and that's it. Or maybe they get a muffed punt to go their way like they did later on and still couldn't take advantage of it. Will Ty Simpson was running for his life and incapable of making a throw while running for his life. I tweeted later, Garrett Nussmeier can make that throw, the on the move, head is bobbing, a lot of body parts that aren't necessarily, if your feet aren't set. Nussmeier can make that move, can make that throw, and that's why he's not like some statuesque quarterback, even though he's not going to run. But Simpson can't make that throw. And so it's so different because, yes, he can pick up a first down with his legs and do some of those things, and he had some great effort on those plays. But if you can't make that throw, defenses just defend you so differently. And everybody in the building knew he couldn't make that throw. Like, I don't know, man. The offensive line was overrated coming into the year. It was far from some unstoppable unit against a very new look FSU defense. And Ryan Williams dropped 3 passes. I don't know if he got credit for 3 drops, but I watched him and he had 3 drops. And I know the last play he gets concussed. He dropped the ball before that. He just did. And that's the guy that people were saying is maybe the best player in college football, or one of the 3 best players in college football. He looked like he was playing with Ty Simpson for the first time. And the look on his face when he underthrew that 4th down ball and that one of these on the run throws, and he's just looking at him and he's like, bruh, is Jalen Milroe still his quarterback? What's going on?
Man, and I feel like Jalen Milroe got so much blame in this. And Jalen Milroe is a guy who I've loved since the day I learned about him. And just, Bill O'Brien moved him around. You guys have heard the whole story from me. But I feel like he was in a way vindicated here, because the whole rap on the end of the last season was, this is all Jalen Milroe's fault. Kalen DeBoer, offensive genius. This guy's just not, I guess, smart enough to run his playbook or whatever it is. But I think you hit the nail on the head there. You watch that opening script, and it's poetry in motion, honestly. I mean, it's all
Carved
kinds of
them.
different looks, carving them up to the air, to the ground. Ty Simpson's dealing, the running backs are pushing the pile, and you're like, uh-oh. This is one of the best drives you could hope for as an Alabama fan because it's everything. It's not lucky. It's 5-6 yards. It's not guy falls down. And then, boom, FSU comes right down and scores. And they converted a couple of key. I believe they had a penalty at a big third down. And it was like, okay, well, FSU is barely hanging on. They're kind of getting lucky. The big plays are going their way. Let's see another drive like this out of Bama. We didn't see another drive near like that. We may never see another drive like that at that time.
Is that it?
Bama. Yeah.
Is that it? Did they spend 8 months preparing for that opening script? Because it was a great opening script. But then after that, where do they turn to? Ryan Grubb was brought in to troubleshoot. And I felt like I said that all offseason. This is going to be the guy that's going to prevent them from losing a game like this when they need to figure out who they are offensively. Instead of having Kalen DeBoer, who feels like he needs to be overseeing everything on offense, he can trust that Ryan Grubb is going to be the guy to figure those things out. And it's going to allow Kalen DeBoer to step more into the CEO role, even more than he was in last year. And Bama will be better for it. And my God, they were not. They were not. And that was just a whipping, an absolute whipping. Can I give Florida State some credit for a second here?
Absolutely. They played a heck of a game.
I dogged Gus Malzahn's play calling chops. Dogged him.
This guy is the best thing that ever happened to college football. I love Gus Malzahn so much. Every time he gets counted out, he finds a way, doesn't he?
I was so wrong. I was so wrong. Gus had that Alabama defense on its heels. And I got to tip my cap to him because I did not see that coming at all. I said Thomas Castellanos was Scrappy Doo. I think he's Scooby.
I think he's Scooby. They're going to turn that into a breaking t-shirt. That's funny.
At the very least, he's Shaggy. He is one of the main characters. He is not just somebody that comes on screen, mouths some useless, just
comic relief,
ridiculous, comic relief, like threat that means absolutely nothing. No. When that man spoke, he delivered, and I am amazed at how poised he was in this game, the toughness that he showed. Mike Norvell, I said he had one of the 2 worst contracts in college football. I did not think that FSU could actually punch a team in the mouth anymore. I thought they were going to have to get another coach for a game like that to happen. And I owe all of them an apology. I really, really do. The game plan was Gus Malzahn peak Auburn levels. It really, really was. And he had every right to tweet afterwards how that felt like old times, beating Bama for him. That man had himself a fine meal on Saturday night. No doubt about it. And Mike Norvell cleaned house. Basically started over with coordinators, a billion transfers, took a step back to not call plays, and his team showed up in the exact way that you would hope in that atmosphere. Just a brilliant week 1 statement from Florida State. And one of the beauties of this sport is how quickly a disastrous season can become a distant memory when you show up like that. I don't know what FSU's upside is going to be. I don't think we can look at Bama beating Bama now, which is that I'm going to get to that in a second.
You're like, that's not even that impressive. Vandy did that last year. What does beating Bama even mean anymore?
Right. You're not even mid 2010s Ole Miss and doing it where you're like, that team could go to a Sugar Bowl or something.
You beat Bama used to hang a banner for that. Yeah.
You still might lose 6 games. No, FSU should be better than what I said, a 6-6 team. Maybe that ends up being an 8-4 team, especially in a very favorable ACC. And they did some soul searching this offseason. That's what that team did. And in the new Doak, like I give them credit for showing up and giving their fans something that didn't totally suck, because last year totally sucked in every way for Florida State. So the do something era, they are not reverting back to it.
They did something. They finally did something.
Tomahawk chop. Don't Photoshop this into Martin Luther King Jr. doing the tomahawk chop. But you are not in the do something era anymore. You have shown with this Alabama performance that you have moved past it. Is that enough credit for FSU? And can we get back to destroying Bama?
As we look to expand our super conferences here, folks, I think FSU has done enough. They have gone 3-0 in season openers against 2 of the premier teams in the SEC. I would take them probably as a first-round pick. Far be it from me, who has watched my team bake in the sun against FSU and get smoked and run out of the building to laugh too hard at Bama. But it's a really terrible thing. And FSU is the most, I guess, what would I call it? It's like the most variance in their aura, okay? Because when FSU is bad, it is like so badly embarrassing. Like you have DJU, the guys are looking the wrong way during plays and stuff. But when FSU is good and you hear, you see the Chief come out with a spear, you hear that war chant, it is, I will remember those war chants echoing off the Superdome for the rest of my life. You feel like you're in Gladiator. And I feel like that's exactly where Alabama was just put, where it's like, I mean, how about the transition from Corso, in his final moment, picking FSU, his alma mater, and it's like let's win one for this guy, and like these are the moments that college football is so unique. Talking about LSU with their Hurricane Katrina patches, and it's like this is that beautiful regionalism where you go, that guy's a Seminole. We have this community together, and even with all these transfers, maybe it was a little bit of, well, they don't know what I'm capable of, and I don't know what I'm capable of. They don't have any film on us together because they look like they had never seen any of these FSU guys individually. So massive credit to FSU.
That's a good point. FSU looked like it truly threw something new at Alabama, and Alabama just didn't know how to respond. The Tony White defense, they bring him over from Nebraska, he was a solid defensive coordinator at Nebraska, and there's a reason why FSU was able to poach him. But they basically had Alabama reacting the entire time, and that effort level was not where it needed to be. Kane Womack, that was a Vandy performance all over again. FSU found its Diego Pavia in Tommy Castellanos.
I mean, we got the picture of Gus Malzahn with Tommy Castellanos before the game. He's got his moon shoes on. He's got some 8-inch Brian Kelly shoes, putting the extra height.
That wasn't photoshopped, was it? We know
I don't
that
think
for sure.
so, because it didn't look like, if it was photoshopped, it almost would have looked more intentional. Like it was like, is that back on a regular shoe? No, it's just the angle. And so point being, like, I sent that to you. It said Diego Pavia would tower over him. Like all the stuff was lining up for this to be a funny FSU game. Again, man, so much credit to Mike Norvell. That's why I never got out on him. Because when your back's against the wall, you bring in freaking Gus Malzahn, a move that we laughed at. I mean, from the time I saw it, disgraced Auburn coach, disgraced UCF coach, hadn't called plays since, the Bush administration. And of course he has a masterclass, man.
Called plays technically at Auburn during random seasons. And it was Obama administration. Yeah. Obama administration was technically last time as an OC, but you're right. I mean, it had been forever. And
Hasn't been an offensive coordinator. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, had been an offensive coordinator since 2011. But yeah, as Thomas Castellanos was breaking off these chunk plays, you knew he was frustrating Bama because some of the unsportsmanlike penalties and Damani Jackson's getting frustrated. Like there was the sequence that was just Alabama's defense as a whole was they finally get a free rusher. They whiff on him. Mm-hmm. Castellanos gets to the edge, gets the first down. Bama hits him late. A play that should have been like a minus 15 ends up as like a plus 30 for FSU. And when you do those types of things and just that's half the field. You just can't. Bama's not good enough to overcome those things. And offensively, I don't really know where they're going to turn to of what this is going to look like. I don't necessarily think it's you must bench Ty Simpson or anything like that. But there were some things that he did in his first career start in which you're reminded, oh yeah, this is his first career start. And it's going to be a little bit touch and go. It just is. I just don't think that at this point, Bama is worth anybody's field rush anymore. I can't remember what the streak is of teams that have beat Bama and then rushed the field after when they've hosted on their campus of like,
what's that first team that beats Bama and they've told everyone do not rush the field? That's going to be a moment of growing up for me, I feel.
That's going to be the most Bama is onto a new era moment that you could possibly have. Bama, since it beat Georgia 11 months ago, Will, is 5-5. 5-5 since they beat Georgia. 1-5 away from Tuscaloosa. Go figure the blowout win or the one win there was at LSU.
Oh, I figured. Didn't take much figuring for me. Yeah.
That is the exact type of game that throws 8 months of it was just year one. We'll be fine in year two optimism down the toilet. No excuses. And don't tell me that Tim Keenan or Jam Miller would have fixed all of those issues that we saw. Okay. This was not just simply, we're without our best run defender. We're without our tailback. No. I am removing Alabama from playoff consideration until it can actually win multiple power conference games on the road. I am. By the way, the next time that Bama will go on the road, week 5 at Georgia, at night, Sanford Stadium, a situation that Georgia has not lost in since 2009. Obama administration, not Bush administration, but close. Very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
If they lose to Louisiana Monroe next week and go full 2007, the coup is on.
You never want to go full 2007.
Never. I did wonder, last thought on this, I did wonder how much Greg Byrne felt just agony. A year removed from where Kalen DeBoer was in that Georgia game, and how everybody's patting Bama on the back, number 1 team in the country, and how Bama had probably dodged a bullet. Something we said during the worst contracts episode about how Bama dodged a bullet by not hiring Mike Norvell. And then you watch Mike Norvell not only beat his coach like a drum, started over more recently than Kalen DeBoer, by the way. Let's add that too. And then you have Mike Norvell do that and also get revenge on you for the 2023 playoff deal. That's a tough pill to swallow for Greg Byrne.
Yeah. I mean, not to, go back and rehash all this, but I said this at the time. My opinion hasn't really changed. I think DeBoer was lower on their list than they would like to admit. I think they got a few no's that we don't, need to get into specifics about. But I think that the way that it was all presented was so PR heavy. And I said this at the time, but it's been a minute, where it's like, we got exactly what we wanted. Just like the NBA deals, it's like, okay, we're talking about these, second round picks and all this. I know this is coming from an agent. And so that being said, like, the stuff that I thought DeBoer would struggle at was things like recruiting. He hasn't done that.
He hasn't struggled there like that. And that's maybe the problem. If he had struggled in recruiting, you could just point at that and say, see, you know what, this bad fit. No, like he's brought in the talent. You have the talent. It's your job now to do these things with it, and you haven't done that.
Yeah, he took over the most talent ever, according to 24/7 Sports, as far as a new coach coming into a roster. And you saw the result last year. I was sitting here talking about how much Ryan Grubb would matter for the offense. So far, it didn't. You know what I'm saying? And again, newer stat because like the talent composite. But
I was going to say Larry Coker, Miami. He took over more talent.
But remember, recruiting wasn't like that back then. They didn't have
different. We didn't track it the same way.
Yeah, like there was 2 kinds of recruiting: that boy good and that boy trash. That was all you had back. Everybody was a 5-star or a 2-star before about 2000. But anyway, so point being, like in terms of the talent composite, he did all this, and we heard he needs to get his guys in, he needs to get his buddy in. Okay, he did all that, and he still lost to this coach who, to your point, kind of can't recruit, who was later, like kind of in the coaching cycle than DeBoer. And so I'm fascinated by this because we could kind of look up and down Alabama and point at different things. When you read the stat sheet from this game, the only thing that really jumps out at you, Bama got that kind of free turnover you talked about on the punt. Therefore, they led the turnover margin, but it was slim. The only real number in a game like this is the key moments. All kind of went for FSU. You talk about when they needed to play, they got it. And the discipline stuff, like you talked about, the penalty yardage, double the penalty number, almost double the penalty yardage. This is just kind of a different team. We saw some of the penalty stuff to start to leak out with the offensive line and the unsportsmanlike stuff, the late hits and stuff under Saban last couple of years. And we talked about it on the air, like, like Bama's starting to lose a little bit of their discipline. And now it's like, man, like what is the unit on Bama that you feel great about? Like your best player, your star receiver is having these drops. And what a nightmare situation for them where he gets, Ryan Williams gets hit in the head. They pick the flag up. So he's injured, but they don't even get the first down. It would have been kind of meaningless at that point. But I mean, just what an absolute nightmare. Like, you honestly start to feel bad for Bama at some point because this is the type of stuff that I'm used to happening to my teams where I'm like, oh my gosh, we didn't get a first down. Our best player just got hurt. Like, it just feels like a bad dream for Bama fans, I guess.
Get them out of tier 1. They're not tier 1 in the SEC after a performance like that. We thought there was 4 teams in that tier 1. Georgia, Texas, and LSU. Some didn't think LSU was part of that tier 1. I think week 1 definitely showed that LSU is part of that tier 1. But hear me out. An idea. Last thought on this. Cameo does great things. You have gotten me a Cameo gift, Brian Baumgartner, aka Kevin Malone from The Office. What was it? It was a happy birthday. Was it Happy Birthday or Merry Christmas? I think it was Merry Christmas, wasn't it? Okay. And we have this idea where certain notable people are available on a live streaming platform for a specific amount of time, and it can go live at moments in which there is enough demand. Because if that had existed and Nick Saban had been open to the idea and just let the money flow into his pockets, I would have paid a substantial amount of money to watch Nick Saban watch that game. A lot of money.
Get him on Twitch. Look, Bama Touchdown Club, if you need some NIL money, just get Nick Saban on Twitch, watching the game, arms crossed, blue suit. I would pay so much money to watch a live stream of that to where like every move is being watched. Oh, yeah.
Do you think Miss Terry can stay in the room when she watches her husband watch a game like that? Because now he's had plenty of experience. And he doesn't make all the road game trips and stuff, obviously, because it's, he's doing game day. He's not going to like always, it's different if he's able to like fly to Tuscaloosa or something like that. You're flying home, but like flying to Tallahassee after doing game day in Columbus. I don't think he was there for this one, but how awkward is it for Miss Terry to watch with Nick, who I just can't imagine he's sitting there just like, oh, that's too bad. All right, get him next week. No way.
If Miss Terry is like my mom, she probably starts like stress cooking or stress cleaning in the background. Like, I'll watch your game in a second, Nick. I'm just over here doing something. And furthermore, actually, that's the second most valuable thing I want to see in Nick Saban. The number one most valuable thing I want to see in Nick Saban is him walking into his remodeled office that now looks like a Nike store and saying, like, whatever comes out of his mouth. That first clip that because he's so dry and funny. The first words out of his mouth, whenever he walks into his old office, Caleb DeBoer has now remodeled it, and he's just like, oh, I like what you've done with the place.
Yikes. Trying times. Feinbaum on Monday. Lord have mercy.
Oh, yeah.
My God. And callers, we'll be talking about this other game. It took us 45 minutes into this pod to discuss 1 verse 3.
Because we're homers, Connor. That's what we respect about it.
Right?
I'm just kidding. It just wasn't that good of a game. We just talked about this.
Yeah, I mean, Texas, Ohio State, the Arch Manning hype train has finally slowed down after it was just off and running for 6 years, really? Yep. 6-7 years. It wasn't quite as bad as it could have been if they had gotten shut out because of some of the throws that he made down the stretch. But it was bad. It was bad, even though it was against an elite Ohio State defense in a hostile atmosphere. Arch looked overwhelmed. He looked overwhelmed. I thought he didn't work through his progressions quick enough. I thought he kept changing up his arm angle so much, and the lack of touch on his throws in key spots was troubling. The late third down throw that he had to Wingo, where he didn't lead him, even though Wingo had that space. I know Caleb Downs was coming downhill, but he hits Wingo in stride. That's 15 easy. You're moving the chains. All of a sudden, there's all the pressure in the world on Ohio State, and they're wondering if they're about to blow this game somehow. And instead, you miss that throw, and it was just too familiar for the day that was for him. I mean, Texas didn't have a lot of opportunities where guys looked like they had room to run in the passing game. And it made it that much tougher to stomach when Arch would miss those throws or the interception that he threw where it's just totally forced. Arch is a work in progress, okay? He's a work in progress. And that was kind of my problem with him being preseason All-SEC was I had him 4th in my SEC quarterback ranking. So I'm not sitting here pretending like I'm on record saying, oh, he's a bust and he's not going to be good at all. Like, I think Arch Manning's going to be a really good quarterback. The guy he is right now is a guy that needs more reps. He's been telling us that. Sark has been telling us that. He's a good player who can do a lot of things for you. And I was talking at Lauren about this, of like, Lauren was asking a question like, why does everybody think he's so good? And my simplest way I can respond to that, even after a game like this, is everything is still on the table. You can do anything in an offense with him. It doesn't mean that he has those things mastered yet, but it means that you can open up the playbook, and when he is able to fine-tune these skills, everything will be there, and he can beat you in so many different ways. And so that, to me, is still on the table, even after a game like this. And that sounds like I'm making excuses for him. I'm not. It was bad. Bad performance from Arch, bad performance from Sark as a play caller, who we've defended.
I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that.
How about just the red zone play calling, Will?
Okay.
Nothing he does in the red zone fools Ohio State, ever.
It's because they can't throw the ball. What you gonna do? Give the ball to Arch Manning in the red zone? Like, I would argue that in the second half, Sark really came on as a play caller because he said, all right, I'm not letting Arch really make any decisions until real crunch time of that game. And so I'd say this, just quick. Let me let you finish your point. Were you going somewhere else with that?
No, I mean, the 2 empty red zone trips, the QB sneak that was stuffed, at least it wasn't a sweep to the running back. like last year.
Yeah, I mean, hey, silver linings.
Yeah, but Sark got so much heat for how limited the Texas offense looked with Ewers, right? A guy playing with a torn oblique.
Right.
And I've been saying for a while that even though the playbook opens up more with Arch, it's just not a guarantee that they're going to dial up the exact right looks early in those key spots because you're still figuring out who he is. What's his get right? Like what is his, because you haven't seen him deal with the adversity. And with all due respect to Mississippi State, he was not experiencing that adversity last year in those games where it's stadium pulse going. This is when you find out who your guy is. And even if Sark doesn't even know, if Arch doesn't even know, how are we supposed to sit here and go, well, generational, everything, he's gonna be just LeBron James of quarterbacks? No, the entire first half they couldn't get a pass to a receiver. Ryan Wingo, I think with 3 minutes left in the first half, had the first catch by a wide receiver. That's not full on Penn State, but to me, that's pretty telling. That's pretty telling of how limited your passing game is.
So I'll say this, right? Week 1 is about what has changed and what will stay the same, right? So things that stay the same, right? And I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but like slamming the Kentucky under, right? The Josh Heupel, air it out, worry about guys getting us on film later, right? And obviously the new things, LSU, Brian Kelly kind of getting that pressure off their back with the big win. Alabama getting smoked by FSU. That's new. Within Texas, we see a little bit of both, okay? We saw the same Arch Manning that we saw at Newman. The thing is, we were all just told we would see a different Arch Manning at Texas. Because at Newman, what Arch Manning was doing was, hey, I'm this big athletic kid. I haven't really grown into my frame yet, but I'm going to out-talent everybody. I'm going to get out there and basically just, I'm Pat Mahomes and you guys are high schoolers. This is a like small kind of like private 3A school in Louisiana. You guys don't have a bunch of 5-stars out there. I'm just going to talent my way through this. We saw Arch trying to talent his way through Columbus, Ohio against
I agree with that.
Yeah, against the defending national champions. And you just can't do that against that defensive front. Now, that being said, some of the things we saw the same. I think this Texas defense is still really good. I think that Sark as a play caller, I think is still really good. I think at the end of the day, they outgained OSU almost 2-1. The deal is they figured out at halftime that they couldn't trust their quarterback to do anything but throw screens and run sideways. And then their offense got better. And that's so scary because that Sark, like, again, we kind of talked about the Sark thing. And I think the thing that we've been the most on the money or kind of against the spread against other people is Sark's ability as a play caller and managing his QB room. Everybody was saying, oh, how could you not play Arch more? How could you do this? Why does your offense look so limited? Exactly what you just said. And the answer was, we were like, it looks like Ewers just hurt. Looks like Ewers can't get the ball down the field. I was not big on Ewers, but he looked worse than I expected. Like he physically couldn't do stuff. Figured out at the end of the year, he was hurt all year. Same thing here. I think Sark did every single thing he could to maximize this roster with this quarterback. And yet we had 10 guys who were on one page that were able to, 170 rushing yards. You know what I'm saying? That's all you can really hope for in Columbus is you're moving the pile, you're pushing guys around. On the lines, you could make an argument that Texas won consistently. But the problem is you had to throw the football eventually. And every time Ohio State knew, hey, you know what, man, we're just going to play this one straight up and you got to beat us. And they just never could.
Yeah, they really couldn't. And credit Matt Patricia for doing that. Great debut. Great debut as Ohio State's defensive coordinator, man, because Lord knows if Arch had picked that defense apart, Matt Patricia is public enemy number 1 in Columbus. And instead, you tip your cap to that guy because clearly Arch was not seeing the field in the way that he should have at moments. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know every single time he missed a guy and like I've watched the All-22 or anything like that. But there were clearly moments in which you're aware he's not going through his progressions or he's feeling pressure that's not there. The missed throw that he had to Wingo, if you just step into that and not try and do some weird arm angle, I know it's easy for me sitting here in my office to say that, but like he was sensing pressure that wasn't there. Even his best throw of the day, well, the throw on the sideline, the Andrews throw that he made on that to the tight end, the 30-yard gain on that final drive where they're trying to tie the game up, that was a dime. That was dropped in a bucket. But the touchdown pass that he had to Livingstone, he's a split second away from a strip sack.
Yep.
A split second away. And he just gets it off. And my mental clock was saying he's held on to it too long. He's held on to it too long. This is not going to last well. And he let that play develop and makes a beautiful on-target throw for Texas's first and only score of the day. But you see in these moments, he's still going to have to figure a lot out. Like even though the situation is good, I just come back to this belief of he wasn't ready last year to step in and become this star. He wasn't ready to lead Texas to a national championship last year. And I have said I don't think you can win a national championship if you lose in week 1, because to me it shows you have too long to go. I didn't predict Texas to win a national championship. I thought Texas would lose this game. I had 24-14 as my prediction. So the Texas offense struggled even more than I thought that they would. But to me, I still think if you watch these week 1 games, this should have been your biggest takeaway watching quarterback play. Okay. And this even goes to like, if you watched Haynes King and what he did in that gritty as heck vintage Haynes King performance against Colorado.
First play of the game, fumble, big dub at the end. Haynes King.
God, I love me some Haynes King.
Oh, yeah.
The only guy that's capable of apparently beating Florida State in the season opener.
How about that?
The experience matters. It just does. It just does. I think you see what it looks like when these guys have those reps. And sometimes that's not even enough, Cade Klubnik. But it matters. And I even thought Cade Klubnik did a lot of better things than Arch within the confines of knowing that defense has an advantage. I still think Klubnik handled himself better in those moments than Arch did. But Julian Sayin was able to make a few of those key throws. Carnell Tate, that play that they made backed up in their own end zone was really, really important. Such a huge conversion. Jeremiah Smith even had 2 drops in that one and actually was probably hurting Julian Sayin at different moments more than he was helping. I realize he's also taking coverage away. But experience at quarterback still matters. And so many people just like lose sight of that. And hopefully watching Arch resets expectations a bit, because he's still going to be great. He's got better days ahead. His defense is going to be exceptional, and there are not going to be these games in which Arch needs to get to 35 points, and he's gonna be all right. I really think that he just has a longer ways to go than people assumed coming into this year.
Yeah, and like I said, I think if people like, he looks like Newman Arch Manning, and if you think that's a good or a bad thing, depends on how much you watch Newman Arch Manning, because people assume, 5-star, he must have been one of these guys that was just putting up 1 billion yards a game. And I think, again, the big troubling thing I'd say here is, 336 yards of offense and 1 touchdown. We could talk about the big moments, how you get a 4th down run for Ohio State that works, get a 4th down run for Texas that's got a QB power up the middle, but that goes to how limited your playbook is. Now, Ohio State knew what was coming on that 4th down play, like 4th and goal. And it's taking the chance with Tate to have a long touchdown pass. That game, that single play changed the entire complexion of this game, because we see it in college football, especially when teams are tight to start the year. It's like, any team can be in any game until you get 2 scores ahead, right? You saw Arch come down and lead kind of a strange drive, but he got his team within 1. You see them driving down the field even at the end of the game. But that being said, I think that Ohio State had a plan. Their offense stayed in phase, and they were able to capitalize on a couple of opportunities, whereas Texas, 20-20 was awesome. As far as play calling, as far as all that, that's what really worries me from the Arch Manning standpoint. Yeah, he's going to get better. Hopefully this is his best game at Texas, or his worst. Hopefully this is his worst game at Texas, right?
Brandon Marcello asked him about that, of like, do you think this is going to be your worst game? He's like, I sure hope so.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, but that's what scares me, is that I really can't point to anyone else and be like, wow, Sark really let him down. The running backs let him down. The O-line let him down. It's like he actually kind of had a perfect situation here to at least tie the game at the end, and they just kept giving him chances, and both sides were like, all right, Arch, take a chance.
Offensive line, 4 new starters, pretty darn good.
Held up, man.
Usby held up pretty well. I thought CJ Baxter looked great coming back off injury. Trey Wisner's still going to do Trey Wisner things, and is really fun. It's kind of amazing how much they built the offense around CJ Baxter. If you look at how much he was targeted out of the backfield as well, I'm really excited to see what he's capable of, and I'm excited to see what Arch is going to do with more favorable matchups coming up. He's going to rack up a bunch of yards over the course of the next few weeks.
We think.
What I'm fascinated to see is how different the conversation is that we're having right now on this Sunday after week 1 compared to 2 months from now when Arch goes to Georgia and Arch has that game. If we're still saying the same exact things, then this is a bit of a Cade Klubnik situation where you'd say, man, it's just different against the league competition. It's just different. But how much he grows from now until that game at Georgia, where we know what it looked like for Texas against Georgia last year. And it's a big monkey on Sark's back. It has suddenly become a big monkey of how he's scheming against these teams that have elite defenses, because he has really not picked them apart. As much as I defend Sark, as much as I say he's a wizard all the time, like that is the thing that is preventing Texas from getting to that truly number one championship level. By the way, first preseason AP number one. Brett McMurphy had this stat. It was first preseason AP number one to get shut out. I think it was in the first half since 1988 Florida State against Miami. So not great. Not great. Rough day at the office for Texas. Better days will be ahead. I still think that the offense probably has a long way to go to truly feel like it's going to be ready to compete for a national championship.
Yeah, 100% agree.
All right, Auburn, Baylor. Will, 4th and 1, 4 minutes left. Auburn clinging to a 7-point lead. I wondered if Hugh Freeze was about to Hugh Freeze all over himself.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to send out Towns Magoo for a kick?
Poor Towns Magoo, man.
Towns Magoo's only doing kickoffs. Good. Alex McPherson, good to have you back, man. Good to have you back. You're one of the smallest people I've ever seen on a football field. Glad that you are healthy enough to be back on the field. Hope you have nothing but great days ahead. God, that sounds awful, what he's endured the last year plus, man. Absolutely awful. But I wondered, what's Hugh Freeze going to do in this huge moment on the road, and knowing that if he makes this decision incorrectly, we will play the result and we will skewer him. And I thought there is a very likely scenario in which this is a Hugh Freeze meltdown, poor decision late in the game, and he's going to take the ball away from his best player, and he's going to like try and throw some fade route that hasn't been there all day, and this is just going to be bad, and Auburn's going to find a way to lose. And then Hugh Freeze, or one of his other play callers, looked at that improved offensive line that Auburn has, which it very much is, and Jackson Arnold calls his own number on the zone read, and he's off to the races. The C's part, touchdown.
I ain't as good as I once was, starts playing in the background. They cut to Hugh Freeze.
By the way, I left that out. Huge Toby Keith win, Brian Kelly. Huge Toby Keith win for Brian Kelly. I'm not going to quite say that winning at Baylor is a Toby Keith win for Hugh Freeze. It's close. It's just below that. It's just below that because of how it played out.
Expectations.
With Jackson Arnold.
Expectations are you puke at your shoes. You're the laughing stock. You do all this. In fact,
you're favored. You can't be Toby Keith win if you're favored.
Competent, right?
Yes.
That's all I'm saying is that expectation is you get Towns Magoo out there shaking 30-yard field goals.
Well, what's the biggest thing that we've criticized Hugh Freeze for at Auburn, right? It's been
great question, Connor.
A lot of things. Round hole, square peg, round hole. Trying to force it when he didn't necessarily have the personnel to back up what he was trying to do. And in this game, you realized very early on, Auburn's got an advantage running the football. And Auburn's got an advantage when Jackson Arnold is running the football. Jackson Arnold admits afterwards he did not anticipate running as much as he did. 16 carries, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. 3-1 was the run to pass ratio for this Auburn team.
Masterclass for Auburn. This is what the boys at the Blades are looking for here.
The single most encouraging thing, if you're an Auburn fan, is that Auburn won this game by 2 touchdowns, and Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton were held to 4 catches for 43 yards. I do think Auburn needs them in SEC play if they're going to keep their head above water. I don't know that they can do all the things that they did against Baylor and be a team that goes 5-3 in SEC play. But Baylor had no answer whatsoever for Jackson Arnold's legs. No answer. It got to the point where, and I don't know if you felt this watching this on Friday night too, but every time that Auburn would run an offensive play that didn't have some element of Jackson Arnold mobility, I thought it was a wasted play for Auburn. That's what it started to feel like in this game. It was like, why doesn't he just tuck it and run?
What is he looking downfield for? Ball hat starting to shake like the Green Goblin mask on the counter. I was like, run the dang ball.
Right? For all the talk about Jackson Arnold's confidence, and we talked about this in the preview pod of what does Hugh Freeze need to do in this game, scheme-wise, to get that confidence going early to where he's not searching for it in the second half of the game. what seems to be the thing that gets Jackson Arnold, at least college Jackson Arnold, going within the flow of the game more than anything else, more than sitting back in the pocket and delivering a nice downfield throw, the thing that gets him going, his legs.
Yep.
His best moments so far as a college player have been attributed to getting his legs going. And it's not like he just doesn't overthink it. And I'm not saying that that's always going to be the case, but for right now, the player that he needs to be to take advantage of this opportunity at Auburn, a second opportunity at a power conference, an SEC program that is desperate to get over the hump. The things that he needs to do to take advantage of that, we saw play out. No turnovers in this game for him. Really only had one bad turnover-worthy play, I thought, as he was getting sacked. It was kind of a little bit too reminiscent of what he did against Mizzou, where he had the free rusher and he just kind of mashed all the buttons. Could have been a turnover, and it wasn't. Huge, though. 0 turnover game and over 300 rushing yards for this Auburn offense. Huge. Exactly what Auburn could have hoped for in a week 1 scenario where you had to see Hugh Freeze be willing to adjust and be willing to recognize what Baylor was doing, or really what Baylor wasn't doing, which was tackling ball carriers with a head of steam.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a game, I was wrong about a lot over the weekend, obviously, but as far as how Auburn's offense could look in an ideal situation, I think we'd hit the nail on the head with something that Jordan Rogers said. I brought up in the preview pod as far as the RPOs, basically calling his own number and making the defense defend that first and foremost. I will say something that did surprise me was kind of the lack of tackling and fundamentals on Auburn's defense. I think that the fact that Auburn was kind of down early and chasing the whole game is something that you don't love to see, obviously, but you do like to see that the offense was able to come from behind and overcome that kind of over and over and over again. Because
they didn't have to come from behind that much, because I thought they were going to have to come from behind from 10-0 when it looks like Baylor's about to score. And they go for it on 4th down, and Auburn's defense stands up in that moment. And then from that point on, it was like that was what Auburn needed. If Jackson Arnold's taken over a 10-0 deficit after the first series he had, which was bad, it was 3 and out, and it was like had a bad throw to Cam Coleman on a quick slant. That was his first throw. And if that was the situation he was stepping into, I'm going, this is bad news Bears. But that defensive stand, I think, really changed the complexion of how Auburn approached this.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say, oh, like their last time trailing was in the first quarter or whatever, but it's the fact of, okay, like Baylor, like I said, goes down and scores Auburn, and they hold them to a field goal. You're right, Auburn then scores a touchdown, but it's the fact that Auburn's defense was unable to put away Baylor. Right.
True.
With their offense playing so well. And that's where I'm going with that is like maybe as an opening game, you'd almost rather it this way if you're Hugh Freeze, because you get to say, okay, we leaned on our quarterback. He's a great leader. He kept bringing us back from the precipice. Now we have some stuff to yell about, a la Kirby Smart. You really should never give up that many yards through the air, but it didn't matter because we've got our quarterback. Our offense is great. Hallelujah. Like if that's our takeaway from the first week, I would say ideal situation for Auburn.
Sawyer Robertson's a very experienced quarterback. By the way, no disrespect to his parents. I am never, ever, 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 ever going to say Sawyer, as they told Jason Benetti and RG3, the broadcast crew. RG3, by the way, was actually pretty unbiased, I thought, in his return to his alma mater. I thought he was really good and kind of a stripped down version of who he was at ESPN. We don't need to really dig into that. I will never say Sawyer in the way that they hoped. Your kid's name is Sawyer. Sawyer, not Sawyer.
The caucasity of some of these names drives me insane, man. I feel like every time I see some kid, his name is like K. Dellis or something, and I'm like, why are there so many Y's? Why are we inventing words? Just have regular names, man. It's just fine.
It's an established name. You can't expect me to know that that's how you feel about that name with the exact same spelling for me to change my pronunciation. I'm sorry. I'm big on getting names right and the pronunciation thing. We had the whole Devon A-Chain turns into A-Chan, but John Robinson is now his name is how he's being known because he finally told people about that.
But you can make up a name when you differently spell an existing. Like I thought that girl's name was Chappelle Roan for like 2 months, man. I'll be honest. I don't like it when people have weird spellings to establish words. Anyway.
Agreed. I thought he actually looked pretty good and pretty comfortable for the most part. Michael Trigg's a very unique matchup. The former Ole Miss tight end who has a lot of people going, wow, where's this cat been? He's really good.
Yeah.
He's been all over the place. Basically, he quit midseason at Ole Miss a couple of years ago. Caden Prescorn then stepped into that tight end role. and because he was the hero in that Tulane game that they were able to that Ole Miss was able to put away on the road. And then he had a fine year last year at Baylor. And in that first game, you're like, dang, it feels like every time they target him over the middle of the field, Auburn just doesn't have an answer. I think better days are ahead for that Auburn defense. I still think Keldrick Falk is a stud, absolute stud. That guy does things within the flow of the game that I'm like, I'm going to be surprised if he's not a top 10 pick in the NFL. I really will be.
Yeah.
I think he's that good.
And just to like put a bow on that, it's like, yeah, I still like Auburn's defensive personnel, and I think they really can improve. And I think for Auburn's offense, they're better than I thought. So I'm like, hey, you know what? This is perfect.
The good thing for Auburn now, by getting over the hump with this one, no disrespect to Ball State, who did they score a point against Purdue? I don't think they scored a point against Purdue.
Man.
And Gio Lopez less South Alabama. We're very likely looking at Jackson Arnold and Auburn being 3-0 going into that SEC opener in the ultimate breakup game of 2025. Jackson Arnold has returned to Oklahoma.
Connor, Jackson Arnold is the blank best quarterback in the SEC right now.
Oh, God. You can't judge that after week one. Like, I used to hate doing quarterback rankings this time of year because
if we could break out the buyout notebook, we could do quarterback rankings. Come on now.
True. Jackson Arnold has made us think he can be at least middle of the pack for a full season. And at his absolute best, he can be a problem that allows Auburn to beat teams that you don't think it should beat. Is that fair?
Yes. Shades of Nick Fitzgerald, perhaps.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. If he could just be Nick Fitzgerald. He was good. He was really good. His rushing numbers are insane. People, if you want to go look up Nick Fitzgerald, but if he could just do that and take care of the football, Auburn's defense will improve. They have great receivers who can win one-on-one. Could be a sneaky team.
Friend of the show. I haven't texted with him in a couple of years, but I should ask Nick Fitzgerald. What do you think about my co-host comparing Jackson Arnold to you? Do you see similarities in his game? Wouldn't have been the comp that I would think of, but if Jackson Arnold's going to run the football as much as he did and as effectively as he did, yeah, that comp will be very much appropriate. All right. Syracuse, Tennessee. Well, these were a couple of 10-win teams with post-spring transfers at quarterback and respected defensive minds who shared the field. And, buddy, it did not feel like it. It did not.
Yep.
Fran Brown is a fine coach who I think is going to win a lot of games at Syracuse. But Josh Heupel is one of the better coaches in the sport.
Yeah,
he is. And we can talk about the issues that he's had on the road. Neutral site games, it's been pretty good. I was really impressed with his offense, that it was that ready to roll. After all the things that I've been saying about Tennessee and fall camp with having a new quarterback post-spring with the receivers that had been banged up, and after how disappointing those groups were really the last 2 years, I just set the bar low, real low. And Joey Aguilar missed some throws in this game, but he played much cleaner than I thought he was going to. Much cleaner. I thought he would look like what Steve Angeli looked like for the majority of this game, and that Tennessee would need the ground attack to kind of bail him out. And Tennessee's ground attack definitely got going, but that was kind of more foot on the gas stuff. And I'll talk about the Tennessee ground attack in just a second here. They came out throwing a lot. They blew past that 18 pass attempts that I set for the over-under pretty early. And they didn't throw nearly as much in the second half because they didn't have to. But they came out really trying to establish that connection and getting Joey Aguilar comfortable. That 73-yard touchdown throw that he had to Staley was a thing of beauty. It was, I don't know if it quite scraped the Mercedes-Benz scoreboard. That's more of a Jerry World issue apparently, but he put a ton of air under it, let his receiver go make a play in stride. And watching that, it almost felt like the type of player that has been missing at Tennessee in the post Hendon Hooker era. Is that a shot at Nico and Joe Milton? Maybe.
We literally, again, I was so wrong about so much over the weekend, including my own team, but this is exactly what I hope to see out of Tennessee, right? And talking about transfer quarterbacks, it's just, they're not all the same. We were kind of sold that because Joey Aguilar was this guy who was kind of an afterthought. He wasn't Heupel's first choice, obviously, with the quarterback situation. This is a guy who has been all over. He's been a starter. He's already had almost 900 attempts in college football, whereas you look at Steve Angeli, and it's like he's already almost at his season high for attempts. And so this was, to your point, a veteran quarterback versus a guy who has never really been the guy, a guy who was kind of hanging around at Notre Dame in Angeli that was like, hey, maybe you are the heir apparent when we stop getting transfers one day or whatever, and then you're not good enough, versus like, hey, you're a guy who has competed, in your conference at different levels. You've been a winner. You've done all this stuff. And I think that we saw exactly that with exactly what you just said. That's what we love the most about Hendon Hooker. It wasn't the ability to run the playbook. It wasn't the familiarity with the receivers. It was a little bit of the leadership, but it's more about it's 3rd and 4. I'm going to die on this field or get that first down. That's it. I'm going to make something happen with my legs. Kind of, I guess that's a little bit more Diego. I won't exactly give that to Hooker, but it's more like, hey, whatever I have to do to make this team win, I'm going to fit myself into that window. And I saw that with Aguilar. The beautiful, beautiful touchdown he had kind of coming back across the end zone where like dude was the script of the play was already over. Dude had already made 3 or 4 moves and he's moving back across his body. Aguilar has pressure in his face, throws the ball up, and it just looks so like NFL Films-esque. I feel like you have somebody here who is not going to take, the bad risk, but he's also not going to be risk averse. We've seen too many risk averse quarterbacks who get the dial-up sound going in this Tennessee offense where they snap the ball and the first read's not there and they don't know what to do. This is a grown man, and sometimes
he's going to take chances.
Yeah. But I'm saying it's not like the Joe Milton chances. It's not like I'm just going to throw this up somewhere. It's having a risk taker in this offense who takes good risks changes everything.
He might be that guy that takes the right risks.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I don't know that he is definitively going to be better than Nico. I realize after week 1, watching that performance, you might assume Tennessee got the better end of that breakup. I'm gonna wait a little bit more to say that. And I'm not doubting that possibility. We could look up at season's end and go, wow, Tennessee made out like a bandit in that trade for Nico, and Joey Aguilar ended up being the better player. That's definitely within play. I think I'm guilty of this. I think I have failed to look at Joey Aguilar's perspective in all of this, because this is someone who had a program recruit over him to get Nico. He thinks he finally has his big break at UCLA after he transfers from App State. And they talked about on the broadcast how this is someone who thought he was going to become a firefighter and was taking classes for it. I think On3 did a story about this as well. And how he's like, my football career is over. And then just decides, let's just give it another shot. And I know he wasn't Tennessee's first portal choice. If Tennessee had its first portal choice, I don't know how far down that list he was, but there were certainly others. One, Luke Altmaier, definitely one that I think if they could have had their way, Luke Altmaier is in a Tennessee uniform instead of Joey Aguilar. But that's kind of irrelevant now. And I just, I don't want to overreact to a Tennessee quarterback doing things against a defense that clearly has a long way to go. That's what got us in trouble with Nico last year. And so let's not, get things out of whack and pretend like Joey Aguilar is all of a sudden going to lead Tennessee back to the playoff. We're a long way to go to showing, to figuring that part out. But what he showed in week 1 was exactly why Josh Heupel even entertained the idea of this trade to UCLA, and knowing that if he tapped into the right things with him, that he could keep this offense afloat and kind of be exactly what they hoped it would be. And I think that's really promising. And seeing the week 1 sample size of the Tennessee offense, I was really encouraged. I love the fact that they're going to have this 3-headed rushing attack, 4 if you want to include Aguilar, but really 3 backs that they feel comfortable with out there. And it's so much different. We knew it was going to be different than what they did with Dylan Sampson, just because that's never been how Josh Heupel has managed a backfield. And they're going to try and have that depth. And, Star Thomas is going off. Peyton Lewis is doing this. Or, Deshaun Bishop's doing that. All 3 of them looked really good. And it's, to me, really encouraging to see the product that Josh Heupel, after an offseason of just weird vibes all around, for him to come out like that in week 1 and sort of squash that and move past that quickly. Guy's an adult. Tennessee, you've got an adult in the room. Week 1 was a good reminder of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say too, the things that we liked about Nico, I don't think we ever saw him put it together outside of maybe the Iowa game and the bowl game. I mean, it was always what he could be, right?
Yeah, it was never all of it. It
Yep.
was all, or if it was all of it, it's against Chattanooga or something. But all of it against the
Exactly.
power conference team. Like, the throw that he had against Oklahoma last year on the road, I was trying to think if there were any other throws away from Neyland
Mm-hmm.
in which I thought, oh, that's why Nico is this dude. There were not a lot of those throws away from the friendly confines of Neyland Stadium. And he's a first-time starter, so you give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But even in a neutral site game, Joey Aguilar made some throws that I don't know that I've seen Nico do that yet at this stage of his career away from Neyland. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm just misremembering, but that to me felt really encouraging.
I mean, it comes down to being a participant in your own game versus kind of being on the sidelines, right? I mean, if you look at the two kind of big wins, take out that Iowa game. Let's be real here, folks. If you look at the two big wins, right, for Nico, it's at Oklahoma, which we talked about. They just kind of stopped doing anything in the third quarter, finished with 194 passing yards, and then the Bama game finished with 194 passing yards. Didn't crack 200 in either game. Finished
Shut
with
out in the first half of that one too.
yeah, exactly. And so, like, it's just like, and we can talk about health, we can talk about this different stuff, but it wasn't like, yeah, they beat Alabama, but he was kind of he was there, but he wasn't a participant really. He was just happened to be the quarterback managing that great game plan from Josh Heupel. The defense stepped up. Whereas, like, if you look at Joey Aguilar, his 247 that he just had in this last game would have been 16th all time for him. Like getting 200 yards is just a day at the office for Joey Aguilar. And yeah, it's different competition. I understand that, but there is something to say about watching the ball go through the hoop. Like, I think Nico didn't make those throws because he didn't really try them. I think that is the difference, is that, yeah, you're going to have some bad turnovers. Yeah, you're going to have some bad picks with Aguilar, but he's going to participate. He's going to try to make his team win versus like, well, if Dylan Sampson doesn't have it today, he's hurt against Ohio State, we might as well just pack it up because we know our quarterback is just not going to actually do anything to really elevate our team or lose us the game. And when you do that, you end up losing the game,
I'm really interested to see Joey Aguilar against Georgia in a couple weeks. I don't think what he did against Syracuse makes me suddenly think that Tennessee is going to beat Georgia for the first time since Dobbs nailed boot, but I am very intrigued. What does it look like against a defense that we think has the talent, we think has elite coaching, and we would expect to show up and frustrate him? Is he able to overcome that? That's really going to be a good barometer for all of our future Joey Aguilar conversations. But good for Tennessee to be able to get on the board. And I think if they had lost this game as the 2-touchdown favorite, everybody would have been going, oh boy, a floor season is ahead and SEC play is going to be rough.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on that, it's not like we're saying, oh my God, we've seen it all. Tennessee is a contender. It's that the fears that Tennessee had of losing out on Nico, exactly what you just said, like the floor is raised. They're not going to go out and score 20 points max. They're not going to look paralyzed with this quarterback that they don't like and that can't figure out the offense. I think that this is exactly, like I said, what you like to see if you're Tennessee, which is that your guys out there kind of going back and forth, your guys out there trusting his receivers already, which is something we never really saw out of Nico, despite whatever receiver it would be. So yeah, I think that this is not a team that is trash. I think we were able to see that, and we just didn't know, really,
Yeah, and again, like we talked about with Auburn, not the cleanest defensive performance, but I would still trust them to kind of figure it out. I still think that there's a lot to like on the back end of that defense.
Exactly.
Well, the SEC as a whole in week 1, we were recording this again before South Carolina and Virginia Tech. At the very least, the SEC will not have a losing record against power conference foes. 6 SEC teams played power conference foes, if we're including the South Carolina game, all away from home. That's
They don't travel. They don't play nobody anyway. Get the 9th conference game.
Thank you, Kurt Signetti, for that. I truly think that if LSU had lost, the clowning of the SEC would have been the story of week 1 in college football. Besides Arch, it would have been the big picture story. For LSU, Bama, and Texas to all lose would have been sky is falling for the SEC. And maybe that'll still be the case. I don't know. Maybe that'll still play out. But the SEC is the only conference that had so many of these premier non-conference games. So naturally, they're going to get scrutinized more. And the ACC does have some big-time non-conference games. But when you're not, having all these teams that start off in the top 10, we, of course, talk about it in a different light. I had told myself that a 4-2 mark would be par. Just SEC was favored to win 4 of those 6 matchups, and anything more would be flex worthy. Anything less would have been fraud territory for the SEC. Can you just imagine what Cannell would have been like if Clemson had beaten LSU? I think he would have gotten an ACC greater than SEC tattoo on his forehead. Maybe.
Yeah, he did like a little FSU versus Bama, who is the best all time at every position thing, and it was so wild. He was like picking the wrong guy on each side. I think, here's the beautiful thing about rooting for Brian Kelly is that you can watch your team get hosed. Everyone agrees with it. You could watch them, it sounded like a certain president right there. I didn't mean to do that, but there wasn't a lot of people going through the rule book and going, well, LSU's wrong here. You could see everyone agree that LSU is getting hosed. And yet you look up Brian Kelly and you just see, well, this is why Notre Dame moved on. Well, this is classic Brian Kelly. And like, what are you watching? And so it's so funny to watch Brian Kelly kind of lead the whole second half or be in control for the whole second half. And then the game ends and he wins it, this big statement victory. Everybody's still like, well, I still don't like Brian Kelly. And so that being said, you could just see all the talking heads circling up around the LSU game like buzzards, where it was like, Alabama's already lost. Like the SEC is dead. The conference is dead. Look at Clemson. They're beating LSU. And so, yeah, I think we already got a preview of that until the clock hit 0 because everybody was wishing for it to happen. But I think we, thanks to a couple of key games, live to fight another day, maybe.
Yeah, we're going to have our good friends, Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis on this week. That's the plan, Kings of the North. And they would have been, not Bill, Doug would have been on one, needless to say, if that result had played out and LSU had lost to Clemson. But instead, we'll just get normal levels of Doug's northern elitism that'll come across.
Real quick, I'll say, guys out there, if you're trying to tag other fan bases and dump on Bama because you think that we're all a hive mind, please do it. Because I'm sure every LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee fan would love to discuss Bama's loss in depth with you. Actually, go ahead and do that.
I love that. I had like a couple of SSU fans that are like basically like, oh, you didn't see that one coming. Yeah, man, I don't when the team goes 2-10.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, I bet you're sad Bama lost. Yeah, that's me. You know me. I'm crying over here. Real tears.
Yeah. It's great to have football back. It's so great. I am just ear to ear smiling. I love recording these pods. By the way, College Game Day, moving on from the Lee Corso era, it made me so sad to watch. So it's just so bittersweet to watch his final send off. And how about all of the schools that he played or coached at getting wins in week 1? Just chef's kiss. College football gods, you have a way. You have a way about you.
The final headgear pick with Ohio State was so magical. Like I was like,
Love it. Absolutely love it. He wasn't going to bring out that dumb steer, Bevo. Come on. We knew
Come on now. Yeah.
I wasn't
surprised he wasn't eating burgers or something. Yeah.
Seriously. All right. That'll do it. If you have not, please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Saturday Down South on YouTube, where you can watch every episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at South Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.